Hi everyone, and welcome to the Being Youthful podcast, episode 5. Can you hear me better? Because I have a microphone this time, which may backfire horribly because I have a mill across the street, a grass seed mill, and trucks are coming and going all day, and the employees are coming and going all day, so it may pick up all of that as well. We'll see. But welcome, and I am Kim Beegler. I am the owner of Youthful Fiber Farm and Mill here in Halsey, Oregon. And there are so many places you can find us online. I honestly feel like I spend half of my day on the computer these days or on my phone. But our website is youthfulfiberfarm.com, and that is where there's our online shop and some information about the actual mill. And then we're on Instagram at Youthful Fiber Mill. We're on Facebook at Youthful Fiber Farm and Mill. And we are also at beingyouthful.com, which is where I do some blogging. And we're on Ravelry. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because I am on Ravelry, but I'm not super active on Ravelry. But we do have a group that's Youthful Fiber Farm and Mill, and I am desperately going to try to be more active on there. So if you're trying to connect with me on Ravelry, that would be a great place. I'm also at Kim's Day, but I'm just going to leave it there. But don't judge me for the lack of stuff I have on my Ravelry page. So welcome. I hope this finds you all safe and ready for what is to come in the next few weeks. Hopefully a peaceful transition, hopefully better. That's what I can say there. And I hope that you are all wearing your masks. Please wear your masks. I have some dear friends that are in healthcare down in California, and it's beyond words what they're experiencing. And I wish I could take it away from them. I wish. And my mom is also down, and my sisters are down in Southern California, and it makes me very nervous. I'm like, please don't drive your car. Please, there's just not enough resources down there. So please, everybody, be safe, do your part, wear a mask, stay home, and all those things. So I think I'm going to do this a little different today. And I'm going to start off with what's going on at the mill. And I'm going to refer back to it a lot. So I figured I'd take you on my little tour of what I've been working on at the mill since I've been back from a little staycation of sorts where I still worked. But anyway, so I think I'm going to let you see what's going on here at the mill, and then I'll come back and we'll pick up from there. All right, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I just wanted to come on and insert a quick little spoiler alert because I forgot to say it before I started the tour of the mill. But if you are in our fiber club and you have not gotten your fiber box, you should probably stop now, unless you don't care finding out before you open your box. And if you're not in our fiber club yet, why not, hand spinners? Join our fiber club. I will put links to it down in the notes from this, but we have spots and you get fiber in the mail every month and a special little gift. And if you're just looking for something different to spin every month in small amounts, join. Okay, spoiler alert, stop. Okay, we're here in the mill for the what's going on at the mill moment. So let me flip you guys around. I'm actually in the front of the building now, and you can see I've got some yarn drying there through all of that mess. And up here I am packaging up Fiber Club to go out the door. These are the last few boxes for the month that will go out, and that's our monthly subscription club, which I will of course have talked about because we've got some fiber. I'm sure I've already talked about this actually. So here is monthly Fiber Club coming off the carder, and it's such a beautiful, and it's just all different colors of gray because I did 2 white fleeces combined with 1 silvery gray fleece, and it's just how it blends up basically. So if we come over to the next stop, I am about to start scheming. You can see can you see it? My steamer is ready to go, and here's the yarn. This is client yarn that we've already talked about that is getting ready. It's all plied up and it is set to go in the steamer and go into skein so that they can come pick it up. Not too much. We started with just over 3 pounds, and these are I think they're a worsted or so, but okay. And then if we come over this way, today we've got, it's a Shetland party. We've gone from llama. You can see I've got some stuff going in the washer there. And there's Shetland washing, our Shetland. And then in the drying rack is Shetland on Shetland on Shetland on Shetland, because I'm getting ready to do some processing of our stuff. And some of this is from a farm called Whistlestop, and she breeds, so this is her Shetland that I bought. You can see, look at that crimp in that. She is breeding for fine wool Shetlands, which I'm sure I will have already talked about, and that's some of hers too. And this is, you can see it's a little bit more of an oatmeal color. This is our one of our Weathers, Andy, and I actually didn't even plan to take him. I bought a couple ewes at the same time, which all are stunning ewes, and they convinced me to take this Weather last minute, and he has one of the favorite fleeces. Every time I process it, it goes quickly, so I'll probably process it just into roving because it sells so well just as roving, as hand spinners really like it. So that's what we're doing. And then my washer is currently in the process of rinsing, and it's got more Shetland in there. It's more of our Shetland. So there is definitely Shetland roving and Shetland yarns to come, and that's everything. That's kind of see my big mess. All right, I'm gonna go get to steaming and finish Fiber Club. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about wool. So in my last podcast, I touched briefly on the idea that when you're buying commercially processed yarns, most of the time, if you're buying a color that is a brown or a black or a gray, it's being dyed, because most commercially processed yarns come in white. And so for your indie dyers that are dyeing them, they're dyeing those colors that would otherwise be a natural color. So, and I kind of just glossed over it thinking, well, everybody knows about this. And then I stopped, and I think even in the video I was like, well, why would you know about this? And so I'm kind of wanting to take it back a few steps, because I try to go back to when I didn't know much at all about wool. I barely even knew about yarn, for that matter, and why would I have? And so I'm trying to take it back a little bit and let you guys, and I'm just gonna start trying to share some even more basic information about wool, because if you're here, I assume in part you're wanting to learn more about wool and about the process of making yarn and different wool products. So my mom recently, I was talking to her, and she said that she was knitting with some, I think it was like some superwash merino, I don't know what it was. She was knitting with that, and she was like, you know, it was fine. And then she started knitting with some of my yarn, which was BFL wool, Blue Face Leicester wool yarn. And she was like, oh my gosh, like it just had life in it. And it had, she said she had a light bulb, right, moment, which I was so excited about. She just was like, this is so different than knitting with a lot of the commercial yarns that I'm so used to knitting with. And she's knit with my yarn before, but it's like anything, after you kind of all of a sudden go, wait, what? And then my sister told me the same story. She's like, you know, Mom was knitting, and she told me, she was like raving about your yarn. And I was like, really awesome. So I'm going to tell you a little secret about me. Although if you're a friend of mine who is a knitting friend, you may know this already. You may even have made fun of me about it. But I don't like superwash yarn. I'm not saying I don't knit with it. Occasionally I do, if I'm making something for a baby, basically. I'm not a fan of superwash yarn. And the main reason for me not liking it is it just always feels to me like it's working up the same. And even when I see pictures of people working with it, it kind of looks the same. And I'm not saying the colors, because there is some amazing dyeing happening in the world, and that always, when I walk in a yarn shop, draws me towards a lot of the superwash yarns. But then I look at the label and I'm like, oh, I don't want superwash yarn. And I'll be honest, I really don't knit with merino a lot. And I mean, I love merino. It's super soft. It has all the qualities that we all love in it, right? But to me, I've just knit with a lot of it, and I enjoy knitting with other stuff. So I wouldn't say I'm a yarn snob, but I am definitely a farm yarn person. and I like there to be a lot of life in my yarns. And quite honestly, I like when I'm knitting something for each project's yarn to knit differently. And you may not know what I'm talking about, and that's cool. Let's talk about it. So for my fiber of the month, oh crap, I have to put a spoiler alert, don't I? Spoiler alert. I better put one. I'll put a big one before I start that last video. But if you're in the fiber club, hopefully you'll have stopped watching by now, but you may have gotten it. Anyway, our fiber of the month, and I showed it in the back on the carding machine, was a Lincoln wool. And Lincoln is a specific breed of sheep, and I'm gonna show you. So here is kind of some typical Lincoln locks. Stunning, I mean absolutely stunning. So Lincoln sheep are known for having a long staple length. They're called Lincoln Longwool. That is the specific breed of sheep. There's tons and tons and tons of breed of sheep. And you can see if I stretch this out, it does have, and this is actually pretty short for Lincoln. Their staple, this is the staple length, is from tip to tip, from cut tip to the tip of the lock, the length. And their fleeces can be 7 to 12 inches, which is really long. This is probably 5 or so, which is about where I like it to be. So this is Lincoln, and the things that Lincoln sheep, all sheep, wool sheep breeds, have different qualities to them. And that's what I look for in my yarn, because I do want it to have life, and I want it to be different. I don't just want the project to be different. I want the actual yarn that I'm knitting with to be different. And so when I knit with superwash, it doesn't feel like it has that life, and a lot of times it's because that life has kind of been stripped away from it. And we can talk more about superwash in a specific podcast, but there's lots of information that you can Google and lots of stuff you can find out about superwash wool. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying if you like to knit with it that you're a bad person. I'm not going to judge you that way, but I personally don't love it. And then I'm going to show you this. So this is also Lincoln wool, and this is Lincoln lamb wool, and you can see how different it is. Do you see how there's a lot more crimp? There's a tighter crimp in the lamb. This has kind of big crimps in it, beautiful crimps. It's longer, which is normal. This is an adult ewe lamb, or an adult ewe sheep, apologies. The luster in this adult is a lot higher, and Lincolns are known, that's one of the things that they are known for. Now this has luster too. When you're looking at a merino, you're not going to have the luster that this wool has. It's just what the breeds do. It's just different characteristics in the breed. So I just wanted to show you first off how different, even going from a ewe or a lamb to a ewe, how different their wool is. And this wool is not the most tactile. It's higher in microns, meaning that it is not as soft. It does have a luster that your fine wools are not going to have. It does have a strength that a lot of your fine wools are not going to have. So while it may not be something you want to make a scarf out of, there are certainly lots of uses for it still. So that's Lincoln. Now I'm going to show you, and I'm going to refer to Shetland a lot through all of my podcasts because I have Shetlands and I love Shetland. So here is, trying to figure out what, some Shetland. Do you see how incredibly different that is? Now, more Shetland. Look at how different even those two Shetlands are. So they're obviously so different. The drape is different. I mean, if you see that versus this is a lot more bouncy, and that's all going to show up in the yarn. So all these different sheep breeds, they all have different characteristics, and it's not just in their wool, but it translates into the yarn that you can spin out of them, and it translates into what you're going to use them for, and it translates into how your project is going to look. So a super easy way for me to show you this is this skein of yarn, which I'm going to talk about because I just dyed this up. So I'm going to make this into a skein. Sorry, hopefully this won't make you sick. And then I'm gonna, and you can see that there is still a bounce to it. And hopefully you saw that. So if I do the very same thing, this is llama with a little bit of wool in it. And I think you saw how that last one bounced. There is no bounce in this, like, because the llama doesn't have any, it doesn't have any crimp to it. It doesn't have anything to bounce back. So the fiber that you're using, whether it be sheep or camelid or whatever, it's all gonna have, like, this is gonna have an amazing drape to it that a merino isn't gonna have. It's also gonna have a different feel. So anyway, I wanted to just start talking, and I will try every podcast to share with you kind of some different wool that I'm working on, so you can really see not only, and talk about how different the yarn is, because it's so different, and it makes it a little more complicated to knit with. Not complicated, but it takes more time to find a pattern that is going to work for it, maybe, because you have to take into account, there's a truck, we'll see how that was. Anyway, I kind of wanted to show you a little bit about that, and about just start talking to you a little bit more about wool, and about how different all these different sheep breeds are, and how different the yarn that comes out of them is going to be. So I'm just going to show you that one. So pretty. Okay, so we talked about my mom. Check. Dad, hi, just to make it even. Check. We talked about the wool, the different qualities, the different breeds. So update on some things that I'm working on. Knitting wise, I'm not done with this, guys, but it is so close that the next time you see this podcast, it's going to be done. My 3-color Cashmere Cowl, I literally think I have maybe 10 rows left, and it's basically a blanket, and I'm excited. This is a cowl. It's going to go around my neck, and this is knit out of our Prineville base, which is wool and mohair, and it is a Border Leicester wool, to be specific. And Border Leicester is not always the softest either. So not everyone could wear this next to skin like I will. And I think that's something else that, for me, the more I started to hand spin and the more I started to handle different wools, oddly enough, the more tolerant I became of things that in the past I would have said, no way, that's too scratchy. And I don't know if it's just in my mind an appreciation for the wools. I mean, I certainly can't wear all wool next to my skin, but there are a lot more. I just can tolerate it more, and I do think a lot of that has to do with appreciation and with just being around it more. So there is my 3-color cashmere cowl. Sorry, so close to being done. I absolutely love it. I cannot wait to wear it. And again, this is out of our Prineville yarn base. Okay. Almost done. One other thing I'm working on, which I promise Wade, check, father-in-law mention. Hi, Stacy, mother-in-law, just to make it even. This is a Christmas hat. Yes, it's January. All of us makers know what that is. So I made this very same hat for Joe, my niece, for Christmas, and now I'm making one for my father-in-law. And he actually wanted the ear flaps. And this is the Easy Peasy by Tin Can Knits hat, and I am knitting this out of Handspun. And this is actually, speaking of different wools, this is a Columbia sheep. I got this wool from Ironwater Ranch, which is a farm in Albany that has a lot of different beautiful sheep breeds, fine and less than fine. Anyway, so this is a Handspun, and you'll see, I mean, it's behaving very differently than a lot. I just love how different wools respond. So there's that. Now, hopefully you've noticed what I'm wearing here, and I might have to take it off because it's pretty warm, but I'll stand up a bit. Finished object. So this is Hint of Autumn is the pattern. It is by Laura Ayler. And this is the yarn that was our very first Ewethful Fiber Club that came out in December. And it's 100% Shetland wool. It is from my sheep. It is very special to me. It is also, I dyed it in the wool, meaning that and I've talked about it in another podcast, but I dyed it in lock. When I say lock formation, I dyed it like this. I washed it. I took all this, I put it in a pot and slowly started dyeing it up in batches. So, and then I carded it and ran through the process, which we saw, I think, in the last podcast. So I love it. I mean, I love it for a lot of reasons. And it looks like, but you know what? And I thought when I first started this pattern, this is gonna be a lot of paying attention, but it actually wasn't. Even the lace work became pretty, I could watch TV and knit it. So, finished object, yay, I actually have one, which is amazing. Okay, so there we are with yarn. And in the next podcast, hopefully, we will have a lot more Shetland yarn. I do have some Shetland yarn in the shop right now. I have a little bit of white, and I have some that has been dyed up, and I also have a very light gray color that is from our sheep. As you saw in the video, I'm working on washing a lot of Shetland, so I am going to have Shetland roving coming up and Shetland yarns, more Shetland yarns. Most of the Shetland that I'm using is on the finer end, and I always try to say that in the online shop, but most of it I think you can wear next to skin. That does not mean that everybody can, but I think it's pretty, I think this is pretty solid. And even for my roving, what I'm using is pretty on the fine end of Shetland, so you should be able to wear it next to skin. Okay, hand spinning. So I haven't been doing a ton of hand spinning because my elbows were kind of bothering me, and I'm not sure if it was, I was trying to figure out what it was that was bothering me, and I don't think it was the spinning, but I haven't been spinning a lot. But one thing I have been spinning, this is always lovely to see, yay, this is all of my, speaking of Shetland and alpaca blend, hand spun up, ready to go. I even ended up with a tiny little skein that I'm going to use as my swatch for my sample, because, and I originally was going to do a sweater out of it, and I kind of changed my mind because I will admit I have not actually counted how much yardage I have of my hand spun, but sorry, I'm trying to pull something up on the iPad here. So I don't have enough to do the sweater I wanted to do, so I've kind of relocated into a different pattern, and I'm going to show it to you. And I do have to swatch for it, was my, so I haven't ever done a vest before, and this vest, so one of the things I looked at was that it is 50-50 was the yarn they used, was a wool alpaca, and mine is 80-20. So it's gonna give a similar drape to it, which is one of the things I look for when I'm using our yarns. And this pattern is Brookdale. It's by Elizabeth Smith, and I'll put all the information in the notes. So I'm gonna start a swatch. And you know what's funny is that I didn't have the needles I needed. How can I have as many needles as I have, and I didn't have the right needle size at home? So I've got the needles now, and just to let you know, we do have needles and stuff online. I've been slowly updating them and trying to restock, but we do have needles online, so if you're ever needing needles, you can always go there. So that's what I'm thinking for that hand spun. I'm really excited to get a swatch going. I'm not really excited to get a swatch going, but I'm really excited to work on it. Next spinning, where is that little guy? I might have to go back to it. Oh, here he is. So this is another hand spun that I just finished. And this is actually from Mystery Wool, which is basically when I am cleaning my carder out, I keep the stuff that I think is not too funky, or if I have leftover roving, just bits and pieces. And then I redid this. This was for Fiber Club a couple months ago. Everybody got different colors of Mystery Wool. And it's basically just everything but the kitchen sink. It's whatever I've pulled off the carder in the last couple of months. And I think this is about 100 yards. And I'm spinning up another skein that is in a similar but not the same color. And this is totally different through the whole thing. And there's little pops, and anyway, this will probably be up online. I was thinking I would get the other one finished and put them as a pair. We'll see. Maybe it'll be up online, maybe it won't. You can always check. So that is one thing I've been just spinning up, having fun with. And I wanted to talk about Fiber Club. So spoiler alert again, bail out if you haven't gotten yours, but I think you guys should have. So I talked about these locks of Lincoln. And I also had, so I had those two fleeces, and I had another fleece that I think was a lamb that I got from a shearer that I know out in Eastern Oregon. She always has nice wool for me to buy. So one of the fleeces was black, or it was like a silver or grays. And so here is the finished result. And this is Lincoln, and like I said, it actually isn't incredible. I mean, it's not the softest, but it's also, it's, you know, you could wear a hat, mitts, all those things you can make out of this for sure. And I do have a lot of this fiber left, so if you are interested in spinning it, you can go online and grab some. I usually sell it in 4-ounce rolls like this. Lincoln, another thing about Lincoln I have found when I've worked with it is it loves to felt. I mean, like, it wants to felt when I'm washing it if I look at it sideways. So if you have Lincoln, definitely don't just like leave it in a plastic bag sitting in the sun in your house, because if it sweats in that inside that plastic bag, it will likely start to felt. So, or if you're a felter, there you go. And I did want to show you, I did a little sample. So because this was 2 white fleeces and 1 gray fleece, it's all going to be very, hopefully you can see there. The roving goes from light to dark, and it's just kind of how it blended out. But I just wanted to show you that and give you one quick tip on spinning, because I should have done this when we were talking about using top, spinning top, but so this is that roving before it's gotten wound into a ball. And I didn't used to do this. So now when you buy fiber from me, as long as it's newer stuff within the last, I don't know, 8 months to a year, there is sides that will spin easier when you're dealing with wool, whether you're dealing with wool top or with wool roving. So I try to give it to you in the form, on the end that is gonna spin easier, meaning that the fibers are gonna draft out easier. So if you're ever working, my point of this is, if you're ever working with a fiber, and not just my fiber, but any fiber in the top or in a roving form, and it doesn't feel like, it feels like it's not drafting out smoothly, maybe flip it around and try to spin from the other side, because there is usually one side where the fibers are gonna slip easier. So that is my wish I would have known sooner for this podcast. If you're having a hard time, maybe try to flip it and try to spin from the opposite end. I just said the word drafting, and so I'm going to talk about it again as I move into kind of what I've been working on at the mill, because I've got a lot of videos of llama. Did you guys ever watch? It makes me think all the time. I was doing so much llama that maybe I lost my mind, but I was thinking of, oh my gosh, why did I just forget? Marsha. Anyway, I kept saying that. Llama. Oh my gosh, the Brady Bunch. That's why. Marsha. So I might have worked on a lot of llama. But, so I talk about in this video quite a bit that I'm going to show drafting. So I just want to make sure for all of you non-spinners out there to talk about drafting real quick again. Drafting is just pulling the fibers out. I'll pull up. Drafting. I'm drafting. And I'm drafting. So when you're drafting, and I talk about in this upcoming video, I'm doing, there's a couple videos that I'm processing just llama straight into roving for a client. And then there is a video where I start talking more about the llama that I am spinning for a client. And this llama is the llama I talked about maybe in the first or second episode, where the client brought it in, I washed it, and I said, ugh, it's too long. The staple length is too long, because on my spinner, it likes to have a staple length maybe no longer than 6 inches again. And so remember, staple length is from the cut end to the tip of, that's the staple length of your fiber. And for my spinning machine, it likes to have a staple length no longer than 6 or so inches. And some of the fiber in this yarn that's in this video is upwards of like 8 inches, 9 inches even. There were some bits of the llama that were really long, so I thought I wasn't really going to be able to get great yarn out of it. And what I actually thought was that I was going to make a roving fairly thin, thinner than this, so that all my spinning machine would be doing was putting twist in. It wouldn't be drafting. So I talk a little bit about drafting as I'm talking through the process of that yarn. And I realized I missed something, so we'll go back to it. But in a minute here, I'm going to show you about that llama, all the llama. And I'm done processing llama, and then I had to do a massive cleanup, because llama is a hairy fiber, and so I don't want that hairy fiber to transfer into the next wools that I'm doing, because it would be pretty obvious. So before I do, other things that I've been working on here at the mill are dyeing. So I've been mostly working on the Primeville yarn, which is the yarn that I am doing that big, huge cowl out of. So 2 of the colors that I just came up with, one, so this is a color, it has no name. I don't know if I actually like it, but I know, I mean, I like it. I do like it, but it's not what I was going for. So I have a couple skeins of this that I'm gonna put up online. And this is our Prineville base. And I do like it. It's just not what I meant to get, but it is stunning, I'm not gonna lie. And it looks really nice with some of our other colors. Okay, yes. Everything looks good with a natural, basically. And then this, so I showed you when I was skeening. These are what I did this week, and it was a new dyeing technique for me. And this is what happened. It's so fun. And it has kind of magenta-y reds. It's got greens in it. It's got oranges and purples in it. It's just got everything. I really love how it turned out. And this was a new dyeing technique for me that I love. And so these are gonna be online. And I'm gonna put a fair amount up as available, and some of it I will have to dye to order. So if you don't get it right away, it may take an extra week for me to dye some up. And no 2 skeins are gonna be exactly alike, obviously, but that is how it looks. But then look at this. So I dyed that green, that minty green, a week or so ago with no intention of anything. But look at how, look at those together. Shut the front door. Can I get back to that? How, it's like my dying mind knew somehow. So those 2 together, so pretty. So I will put those up online so you can find those there. And just for fun, I wanted to show you some things because sometimes it's hard to imagine what are you gonna do with some of these yarns. And this yarn is gonna be, it's gonna have lots of small, just little color transitions. So you can see as you knit it, one single of yarn is gonna go from a yellow, and then it's gonna go into the green, and then it's gonna go. So I just wanted to show you some ideas because I messaged a friend and she fell in love and was like, please, can I buy it? And I said, yes, you can. But I can also dye it more, so have no fear. But I wanted to show you some ideas of fun things to do with it because she said, oh, I just love knitting with yarns like that because it kind of makes it look like color work when you're doing it. And it's quite true. It is fun. So some fun things that I thought could be knit with this are these socks. So these are the Ugly Duckling socks. I'll put it in the show notes. So you're using one, that black is their one solid color, and then the other is just a single skein of multicolored yarn, right? And as it runs through the colors, it's creating that effect. And it's basically a mosaic knitting, which is mosaic is you're only using 2 different colors per row. And in this case, she's using 2 different skeins for the whole sock. So if you did something like a solid with this, you know, if this was your black and this was your colors going up through the sock, it's gonna have a really fun effect like that. Or you could even go crazy and have this as your solid and this is the color running through. Holy cow, so fun. And then I had one other one that I thought was fun too. So this is called the Chevro Mania. This is a hat. Let's see if I can get it in the right place. So same idea. You have your one solid color, and obviously naturals are great for that. And then you have another color that's gonna run through. Now mine isn't gonna run through quite that, it's gonna have smaller color changes than that, but same idea. So basically most patterns where you're doing mosaic knitting where you have 2 colors that you're running on the same row, a lot of those patterns would be so fun to use with that color. So I think that's all I've got for what's going on at the mill and everything. I think I'm going to go to the videos. So in these videos coming up, I show you, I was working on llama for a client who was just getting it processed into roving. So I show you 2 videos of that, of just her 2 different llamas. And when I'm working with camelids, my biggest issue or concern that I have is that the camelid fibers don't have the toothiness, the scales as they're called, that wool has. And the scales are what kind of helps keep wool together. And because the camelid fibers don't have that, they tend to want to not stay together as well in processing. So I have to slow the machines down. It takes a little finagling to get the machine at the right place and the fiber at the right volume to get a roving that won't break. And I talk about that a little bit in the videos. So that's something with concern. With this llama, most of the llama I was working with, it was very different. And the reason it worked on the spinner is because there was very different staple lengths. So while some of the staple lengths were like 8 inches, which is a no-no for me, a lot of it was in the 3 to 4 inches range. So I'll talk about that at the very end here after the video, just so it'll make a little more sense to you. But so there are some issues, and it did not hurt that it's been raining and it's very humid in my building. And so that helps keep static down, which is an issue when you're dealing with camelid fibers. I mean, when you're dealing with any fibers really, but with camelids especially, they tend to try to fly away from you. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and let you see. So there'll be 2 videos that are pretty short where I'm just showing you the llama that I'm carding up for the client that was taking it as roving. And then I'll have a couple videos where I am going from, I can't remember if there's a picker, but there's the carder and the draw frame and then into the spinning room. So I will be back after you kind of see how this pans out for me. All right, enjoy. Hi everyone. So I am here in the mill today and I am working on some llama. I'm gonna flip this. So we've got llama waiting, llama on the carder. And I'm gonna show you, you can see under here, there's gonna be a fair amount of waste because this is hair, really. So a lot more of it's gonna drop out. We'll see if you can kind of see in here. You can see it coming off the carder there. And occasionally it doesn't quite catch. You can see a little bit of fiber down on the ground. I'll pull down here. But it's actually holding together shockingly well. I'm really happy with how it's doing. I haven't had to add any wool to it. So if there was wool, I would have, even if I added like 10%, I'd have even less loss along the way, but you can see a little bit on the ground there. So this is doing shockingly well. I am very excited. And this is 100% llama. All right. Okay, day 2, more camelid. This is more of a, it's blending out to be a, I mean, it's got lots of gray in it. It's got black, it's got white, and it's carding up really well also. And I'm gonna come over here. It's time, as you can see, for me to push the fiber down. So we're gonna do that. Sorry, I lost you for a sec there. I'm just pushing it down so that it fits in the bag for the client and kind of stays a little bit orderly. You can see there's a little more waste down the bottom, but not bad. And it's coming off pretty good. Where it's coming off sometimes, if you're doing a fiber that doesn't want to stick together well, it'll start to fall. You'll just start seeing it not be able to catch and stay together and fall kind of in clumps down at the bottom. But this llama is doing fantastic. And it is a coarser llama that I'm doing, so it's got a little bit more grip to it than if I was doing a finer or silkier llama. So there you go. Hi everyone. So day 3 of Camelid Love. I'm gonna flip the camera and we're gonna see. So today I am working on the last that I'm doing of llama, and this is 90% llama, and I added about 10% wool because I am experimenting with some yarn with this for a client that is not terribly attached to this clipping. So I said, well, let me play with it and let's see what we get. So let's go to the other end here. We're working away. Peeking, and we're doing good. I'm happy with this. You can see a little bit drop there just now, but most of it is just tiny bits. And my roving coming out the end here is looking pretty good, decently even. Always a little hard to tell off the carder, but I'll keep pin drafting it after this point. And I, like I said, I added the wool to just give it a little more to stay together with, because this is a different client and this is a different llama. Sorry about the buzzer there in the back. So, next step, it'll go through the pin drafter and then we'll do some playing at the spinner. Okay, so we are here at the draw frame now, so I'm going to flip this, and if you haven't seen videos of this, I can't remember if I put them in the podcast or not, but the point of the draw frame is to keep, it actually drafts the fiber a little bit as it's going through, and it keeps aligning the fibers into more parallel positions with each other, which then will make for a more even yarn. So this is the first round of, I'm going to flip, yeah, so the first round of this, it's basically a 90-10 llama wool roving. And you can see I've got it all lined up here. And the big thing that can sometimes happen when you're doing alpacas and other camelas that don't have quite a lot of tooth to them is that if the roving's not, because the fibers don't want to stick together, the roving can actually break through all these further processes, which makes for a big fat headache. So what I'm looking for here is that the roving's going to stay together, which so far I feel really good. It didn't settle a whole lot in the bins overnight, so it's not going to be like weighted down by the fiber that's on top of it or anything. So here we are, and I'm just going to show it to you. And I've got a little bit coming out the end, and you can see there's the little teeth that are going to keep combing it out for us. And then here we come out the end. So I'm going to turn it on and we'll just see if it's going to keep running well for us. So like I said, I'm just watching. I'll kind of keep a close eye on this just to make sure that the roving doesn't break on me here as it's going into the machine. But I'm really happy with how it's feeding in at this point. So, and you kind of are always watching to make sure it doesn't get caught up on any of the rollers along the way, which of course has happened, and it's a hot mess. And then we're coming out the end here and we're just dropping into these bins. So I'll do this twice, and the reason I'll do it twice is just to get the fibers more and more aligned before they go over to the spinner and to get the roving more even. And I'm not really aiming for an even yarn with this, because the staple length is so long on this fiber. It's kind of me just playing with it more, and it's going to be a very farm yarny yarn, I'm guessing. I was going to spin it without drafting it any further at the spinner, and I'm not sure if I'm going to stick to that or not, or if I'm going to try to draft it a little bit. We'll see. Once the roving's done and I get a better idea of what the fiber looks like and how it's behaving, I will play with it a little bit on the spinner. So that'll be our next stop. Just thought you'd be interested to see this process. And so far, so good. Okay, we're here. We're in the spinning room. So I'm going to flip you around yet again and let you see where we're at. So I have got the roving set up, and you can see it's pretty thin. And I did that on purpose because I wasn't sure if I was going to draft at all or if I was just going to let it put twist in and be a heavier yarn. But I decided that I thought it would be able to draft. And again, the reason it may not be able to is if the staple length is longer than the front and the back, the fiber can actually get stuck underneath these rollers. So I've already run the first batch, so I know that it actually turned out well. And you can see there's a lot of hairs. That's because there's a lot of hairs in this fiber. So I know it's going to turn out, but I wanted to show you guys kind of just what, and the reason I did a sample was because once I got the roving off of the draw frame, I thought, okay, well, it's not getting stuck between my fingers if I draft out more than like 5 inches or so. And there are going to be some hairs that are longer in there. So to combat that, I am using big spacers here because I basically just kind of want the fiber to slip a little bit through these rollers and not meet with any tension anywhere along the way. So if those longer hairs do run in, they're not going to mess up the yarn. And it's not going to be, like I said, a perfect yarn, but it's going to be a nice farm yarn. and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. And the roving is holding together perfect, so I couldn't ask for more there. I've got these big spacers here because, again, I just kind of, these put a space between this bottom roller and the cot here, and or not the cot, but the band here, and I just want the fiber to be able to go through as smoothly as possible in case it gets any of those long fibers in there. I don't want it to get caught up on anything. And I'm trying to think what else. That's about it. So you can see I've got it all set up to go. This one's really set up to go. I'm going to pause you guys because I can't hold the camera and run the machine. So I'll pause it and I'll be right back. And she's running. Let's go keep again. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully my little drafting before we went into those videos made sense as you were watching that. And like I said, my initial thought was because some of those fibers were so long in that llama that I spun to yarn, I thought I was going to have to spin it without draft, which basically would be taking rollers off of my machine so that all my spinning machine was doing was adding the twist, but not drafting at all. So it was just whatever the size of the roving was, which somewhere I have roving. Whatever the size of the roving was going to be the size of the yarn. So I would have had a thinner roving than this, and the machine is just going to add the twist. So whatever size the roving is how the spinning machine is going to twist it. But because that llama had so many different lengths of fiber in it, and a lot of the fiber not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but there was loss along the way while I was carding. So some of those longer fibers dropped out along the way. And because there were more of the shorter fibers than there were the longer fibers, it blended out so that I was able to draft it, so that there weren't fibers getting stuck in those rollers on my spinning wheel that were too long. The other thing I did to that llama, which I think I talk about in the video, I can't remember right now, was I did add a little bit of wool. So that was a 90% llama, 10% wool. The main reason I added just a smidge of wool was to help the llama stay together better. Because if the fiber isn't staying together super well, the roving's gonna come out pretty uneven, and then I'm trying to make up that unevenness as I get to the spinner. So the more even that roving can be coming off the carder, and the more even I can have it going into the draw frame, the more even my yarn is going to be. And especially because I didn't think that I was going to be drafting. I thought that this fiber was just going to be spun. So I wanted as even of a roving as I could get. So I did show you this yarn earlier, but here it is. And it turned out really lovely. And I'm quite happy with it, and I think the client's going to be happy with it. And you can see it is very hairy. The hairs did settle down a little bit with steaming. And I put a really light twist on this because it was a longer fiber. I was able to put a pretty next to my skin, but it's a nice yarn. It's a nice yarn. And so just to show you, this is kind of how it looks in the skein form, or before it's been. And I think it turned out really lovely. So hopefully they'll like it. And I will get these finished up and get them out the door to the client. So I think that's everything for this one. Maybe we'll be a little bit shorter. I doubt it, but maybe. And I'm not sure why it's telling me a weird timing thing, but hopefully it works out. So anyway, thank you all for joining me again. I will see you in about 2 weeks, and hopefully in the meantime, any of the stuff that I posted here, the Prineville, the new dyed up stuff, I will put on the website, so it should be there by the time this airs. And then hopefully in the meantime, there will be some Shetland rovings and yarns showing up on the online shop. If not, in the next podcast, I will be telling you that they are showing up, and I'll be able to show you what I've been working on. So until next time, please, if you like, don't forget to subscribe so that YouTube knows that you like me. And comment, because I do love the comments, and check out our website wherever else you want to find me. So thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, I will be here. All right, thank you. Bye.